Let me tell you a story tonight. A story not just about a house, a pit, or a particularly overzealous neighbor, but a story about boundaries, persistence, clarity, character, and what happens when people try to build power on the back of tyranny disguised as community. It's the kind of story you tell once and it lingers because the lessons go far beyond the lawn, the mailbox, or even the HOA. This story, my friends, is about freedom, personal freedom, financial freedom, and the courage to guard both. Let me take you there. Now listen carefully. It all began when I made a decision, a firm decision, to live life on my terms. See, years ago, I bought a property right on the edge of a gated neighborhood. Riverside Heights, they called it. Beautiful place, lovely homes, but also, and I say this with no exaggeration, notorious for its HOA. Now, there's nothing wrong with a little order, a little structure, a few community standards, but in Riverside Heights, order had become obsession. Standards had become shackles. And at the center of it all was one woman, Margaret Lawson, HOA president, clipboard commander, and enforcer of aesthetic tyranny. But here's the thing, my property wasn't in her jurisdiction. I was outside the gate, just close enough to be visible, just far enough to be free. Now that, my friends, drove Margaret wild. And let me pause right here and say this. If you don't design your own life plan, chances are you'll fall into someone else's. And guess what they have planned for you? Not much. That quote, that's mine. And never in my life has it been more relevant than when Margaret showed up on my doorstep, uninvited, clipboard in hand, measuring tape dangling from her wrist, and told me, sweet as pie, that my mailbox was 3 inches too tall. Imagine that. A woman whose power stops at a property line, deciding that geography is a technicality. I told her plainly, ma'am, this is not your kingdom. But Margaret, oh, she had a vision. She believed every home within visual influence of Riverside Heights belonged to her moral and aesthetic domain, and so began the war. At first, it was letters, dozens of them, certified, formal, and absolutely ridiculous. My grass was too long, my driveway too stained, my bird feeder attracting the wrong kinds of birds. I wish I were making this up. She even tried to stage interventions, neighbor outreach visits, like I was a one-man blight on the community, but I understood something Margaret didn't. You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction. I stayed the course. I didn't respond in anger. I didn't waste my time on resentment. I invested in clarity, in documentation, in preparation. Why? Because I've learned when a storm is brewing, it pays to reinforce your foundation, not fight the wind. But Margaret didn't just want control. She wanted surrender. The escalation came fast. One morning I woke to find orange traffic cones across my driveway. A notice taped to one said I was under community review. The audacity. I moved them and went to work. By evening, the cones had multiplied, and now a chain blocked my driveway like a checkpoint in a war zone. Another note, this one more aggressive, insisted that my access was restricted until I confirmed HOA membership. Let me ask you, how many of you have faced people who try to control you, not through rules, but through force, fear, or manipulation? You don't fight that kind of power by screaming. You fight it with precision, with documentation, with resolve. So I bought myself a security system. If Margaret wanted a battle she was about to be broadcast in high definition, the next morning I heard the rumble of machinery, and there she was, Margaret, in full regalia, directing a backhoe like a general at war. I'm talking about a full-scale excavation. My driveway disappearing scoop by scoop, replaced by a 12-foot deep pit and a plywood border that looked like it came out of a high school shop class. I stepped out and asked a simple question. Do you have a permit for this? She waved her clipboard, like Moses parting the sea, and told me, HOA approval supersedes county requirements. Now listen, that's the sound of ego, my friends. That's the sound of someone confusing authority with wisdom. I recorded everything. And oh, it gets better. Margaret told her assistant that the pit needed to be deep enough that I couldn't refill it myself. She said, and I quote, if Patterson can't leave, he'll have to join or sell. You ever hear something so bold, so wild that you have to smile? That was the moment, because when people show you who they really are, believe them. Then call your friend at the county inspector's office. Tom Brennan was that friend, a good man I'd helped years ago when he was navigating a messy construction dispute. When I showed Tom the footage, his jaw dropped. He made a few calls. Within the hour, the sheriff was on his way. County inspector, DA, representative, all of them. And Margaret? She was back at the pit, posing for pictures like it was a victory monument, until gravity got involved. She stepped back for a better angle and the plywood gave out. Margaret, clipboard and all, tumbled into her own trap. Now, if that isn't poetic, I don't know what is. She sat at the bottom of that muddy hole, screaming about lawsuits, demanding they arrest me. The deputies, God bless them, just looked at her like, "Lady, you dug the pit." When they pulled her out, she was still yelling, still claiming immunity as HOA president. The deputy told her flatly, "Ma'am, this isn't the United Nations." Within 24 hours, the video went viral. HOA Karen falls into her own power trip. That was the headline. But the real story was what came next. The investigation revealed that Margaret had misused over $15,000 in HOA funds. She paid for the backhoe, the plywood, the signs, even hired a landscape designer for the fictional community garden. She forged permits, lied to the board, caused over $20,000 in damage to my home. My Mustang now sat on a 5-degree angle. The garage foundation cracked. My grandfather's oak tree dead from a busted water main. This woman, in her quest to force control over what she did not own, destroyed what wasn't hers to touch. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons, and Margaret was about to feel the full weight of hers. At trial, the evidence was overwhelming. Footage, testimony, former neighbors sharing horror stories, everything from garden gnome citations to birthday party shutdowns. One man broke down describing how she fined him for the shade of his paint. Another told of how she invaded his backyard without permission during his daughter's birthday. But it was her own words, caught on my cameras, that sealed it. The jury deliberated for half an hour, guilty on all counts: property destruction, fraud, criminal mischief, misuse of funds. The judge, with clear disgust, sentenced her to 18 months in prison, $50,000 restitution, and 5 years of probation. She was banned from holding any HOA position for life. As they led her away, still smeared in shame, if not mud, I thought about something I tell every audience I speak to. For things to change, you have to change. For things to get better, you have to get better. You can't fix the world, but you can fix your part of it. And when someone tries to rob you of your liberty, whether it's with a pen or a backhoe, you'd better be ready. This wasn't just a lesson in dealing with difficult people. It was a test of financial freedom, because if I hadn't had the money to install security, to fight back, to repair what was broken, I'd have been stuck. Too many people live in silent misery because they're financially handcuffed. That's why I say the major key to your better future is you. Build your savings, build your skills, build your network, because one day someone may come with a clipboard and a smile, and you'll need more than charm to stop them. Let me leave you with this. The pit Margaret dug was real, but it was also symbolic. It was the pit of control, of obsession, of unchecked ego. And the truth about pits is, the people who dig them for others often fall in themselves. You protect yourself with preparation, you defend your life with clarity, you invest in your freedom with discipline, because if you don't own your life, someone like Margaret Lawson just might try to. And that, my friends, is a battle you'll want to be ready for. Thank you.